Yeah, I'll just get hooked up and connect with Lily in about where we are.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And the first thing, Anton, you want to lead the pledge?
Ready to begin? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go to the public comments, and the only card I have is Charlene Opine.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Charlene Opine, and I am a kindergarten teacher here at Clemens Primary School, and I live here in Philanthropic. So, dear board members and Superintendent Holliday, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight in person. I come before you wearing many hats. I'm a mother, a wife, a daughter, a business owner, a Philanthropic resident, and an educator. And I am concerned. I am very, very concerned. When getting my Master's of Arts in Teaching, it was stressed again and again the importance of evidence-based practices in education. In essence, it's using teaching strategies based on hard evidence instead of anecdotal case studies or untested theories. That is the framework of how us educators think, teach, and bargain. This is why I am concerned. As educators, we have been trained to use proven research, tested theories, and facts. I am concerned because when I listen to the bargaining of our district, I hear more anecdotal numbers from untested approximations than real facts. Their unwillingness to negotiate, compromise, or even commit to real numbers in current data is concerning. The district has appeared to have drawn a hard line in the sand. And for what? What message are you sending to our educators, our families, and most importantly, our students? You are letting us know that we are not valued by you. You are letting me know that my work and dedication to our students and love for this community is better valued elsewhere. You are letting our students know that they don't deserve the best. You are letting me know you truly do not understand what we have gone through currently, much less over the last 18 months. You are telling me to increase my hours, increase my workload, increase my risk and my family's risk of serious health implications. And you are telling some to continue to work in a toxic environment, but to do it with literally less pay and less respect. While employers around the state are increasing their compensation in order to hire new employees and retain valued staff, you are enticing us with a value that cannot keep pace with the price of living. You are telling me your anecdotal numbers and approximations have more weight than the simple facts. So here are some facts. It is October 21st, and I am exhausted. My colleagues are exhausted. This is a fact. The price of groceries has increased by 4.6%, and it is only getting worse. That is a fact. The price of gas has increased by 42.1% over last year. That is a fact. The price of housing in Benton County is up by 19.2%. That is a fact. The price of energy is up 24.8%. That is a fact. Inflation rose from 1.3% to 5.3% in 1 year. That is a fact. Knowing these facts, your proposed salary increase is shameful and disrespectful. So I ask you all to get involved and ask a lot of questions about why we, the only district by far, is working without a sliver of hope for a new contract. Why a lawyer hired by the district is running the bargaining sessions into the ground and insulting us as educators along the way. We have always bargained in good faith. Why can't you? It is time to start bargaining in good faith, knowing that we are valued. So yes, I am concerned, very, very concerned. We have been demoralized long enough by those that do not ever step foot in a classroom. I call upon you, all of you that have been elected by our community members, to take this opportunity to talk to the educators in this district and to ask the tough questions, because we do have value, and it is time for the district to show it.
Thank you. Student government reports.
Susan to, I have to get through.
It should be right there.
And we have Sophie Robinson will be doing the student government report tonight. Sophie Robinson.
Hi. Do I just start talking? Is it set up?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name's Sophie Robinson. I'm the ASB treasurer, and this week is homecoming week, if you guys aren't aware. ASB's been doing a ton of work for that, and I'm happy to say it's been going really well. We've been having weekly practices for Powder Puff teams as well, and that's been fun to go and supervise because they're actually having a lot of fun. I feel like this year has been less competitive than past and just more for fun because we're all back in school together, which has been really nice. Last night was the Powder Puff game and the bonfire. This was one of the smoothest organized Powder Puffs we've had in a while. It's been great having so many people here helping out ASB. A part of that is because of how smoothly the freshman orientation went on the first day of school for freshmen. We were able to have many freshmen sign up in ASB this year, and it actually went to the point where we had to make our own group of just freshmen called the Aux group, which is just people helping out to set up events with less classwork. Tomorrow, we have a huge day for ASB. We have the parade in the morning with the whole school. And then at the end of the school day, we have the annual mess assembly that we've been planning since September. So we're really excited about that. Then that evening, we have the ASB tailgater, followed by the homecoming football game, where we will be crowning a queen at halftime. So we're expected to see a lot of people for that, which will be fun. This week, we've been doing spirit dress-up days each day, which has been great. And the freshman class is actually in the lead, and they've been showing exceptional school spirit this year. I also wanted to say that we have a really awesome ASB group right now in the class, and they've all been working really hard and always showing up to the class with a positive attitude and determination to lead. So do you guys have any questions?
No, very good, very good, thank you. For the association reports, PEA, Lynn?
cars and computers so far. And, you know, I had, personally, I had a breakthrough case of COVID for 2 weeks and had to have a subs for 2 weeks. Still continue to have multiple students suddenly being gone for 1 or 2 weeks at a time, things like that. And so understand there's across all the schools, we have teachers just really struggling with additional workloads, additional demands, health concerns, all kinds of things going on in our school. And definitely, we would love to have some things taken off our plates. And so that's the thing.
Thanks, Lance. OSEA.
Hey, everybody.
Have Ryan killed them.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Good evening, school board members in the Philomath School District community. I'm Ryan Kilday, president of the OSEA Philomath Classified Union. I want to start off by thanking all of our classified members for their continued hard work throughout our district to support our students through educational support, clean facilities, and countless other aspects they oversee. Our members are doing everything they can to keep our students healthy and safe while still fostering positive relationships. Even when students are quarantined or sick, members are doing whatever they can so that those students can still be successful. We will be holding officer elections at our chapter meeting next week, so you'll probably be seeing a new face in this position in the near future. We currently have 2 MOUs that we are bargaining regarding the vaccine mandate on one of the classified positions. It's our hope that we can take care of these in a timely manner and have them completed before we start our contract bargaining this upcoming spring. We also know that some districts are experiencing sub shortages and are looking at offering emergency certifications for some classified staff to help fill in. We would absolutely support these certifications if we have a need for this in our district. And we're excited to continue to work to keep the school year going in a positive direction. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report.
Here, I think. That. So you'll hear a lot of different things from me tonight, so there's just a couple of things to put together. I wanted to mention, like Ryan said, that the state has offered up the extension of emergency substitute licenses for individuals that aren't necessarily holders of a bachelor's degree. And we are entertaining that and actually beginning to work on some of the people that we would place into that category and what the parameters are for being able to make those choices, because we are short of substitutes in our area. So we're really looking to have that be a way to make sure that we have classes that can continue and that we can take care of the needs that we have. It's just been a hard thing to be able to fill substitutes. So the school and district report cards we'll talk about more in a little bit, because we've got that in there. What I wanted to do was let you know the public release date, it's happened already, but the information on the district and school profiles, and we'll be talking about those from what is in your packet. Another thing I wanted to share with you that speaks volumes of the individuals in this district and their commitment to this district. We all know of the requirement for Oregon school staff members to be vaccinated as of October 18th, which was Monday. So individuals have options here of being able to submit a copy of a vaccination card, submit a religious exception, submit a medical exception, or request for approval and unpaid leave of absence for the year in anticipation that things could change for the following year for people in that kind of an experience. And I'm real happy to report that all of our staff members, and when I say that, I'm talking about licensed, classified, unrepresented, administrative, fall coaches, substitutes. I've got a few left to look through, and volunteers that are currently within the schools that, as it says on there, all staff members currently employed in the Philomath School District and Philomath School District schools have met the vaccine requirements. When I hear of other schools and districts, today I was a part of our regional superintendent's group. And when you hear of people saying we lost 6 people, we lost 12 people, we're going to lose 30 people. I mean, depending upon your district and its size, it speaks highly of being able to say there's a commitment to be able to make sure that people like it here enough and are committed here enough that everybody's in compliance and it's a good space for us. We continue to have additional vaccination clinics set up. We have one Monday night, the 18th, by 3:35. And when I got over to the high school, the lineup was already from the doors of the community conference room back to the doors that enter towards the auditorium and around by the stairwells of people there. And it was consistent all evening long. So most people in that instances were there to get a booster rather than just their single shot or their tube. So we've got 2 other dates. One is set for November 17th. The other is December 8th, and we'll continue to publish those. The other reminder I wanted to put out there is about fall conferences. And those fall conferences, parent-teacher conferences, have already been held for Philomath High School and Philomath Middle School. And they are scheduled, for Thursday, November 4th and Friday, November 5th at the elementary levels. This will be the one and only time this year that hasn't happened for a few years that we had a day where middle school and high school students were out of school, elementary students were in school, and for these November dates, the November 4th date, that will reverse, where we won't have elementary students in school, but we will have middle and high school students in school. On Friday, November 5th, all K-12 students are out of school on that day. For our elementary levels, that is for conferences. For the middle school, it is the end of the first quarter grading period. And for the high school, it is a grading assessment day. And it goes back to kind of our look with being able to say, we really want to the degree possible, make sure that when one grade level of students are off, all grade levels of students are off, to be able to have that level of consistency within a family. In order to get the elementary conferences to be together for the first time in a while across 2 consistent days, rather than one week and another a week or 2 later, this was the way that your calendar committee set it up to be able to make sure we could address those needs of those options for our elementary folks specifically. Also a reminder that most of the conferences will be held virtually rather than in person. So the virtual scheduling is our first go-to, although my understanding from our work with the schools is that if there is a person who can't join virtually and there needs to be an in-person, or there's another big reason to make that happen, then that can happen. But asking people to come into the school will be the exception rather than the rule, to be able to make sure that we can just watch out for the safety of our students and families, and a lot of people coming in and out. So knowing that I've got a lot of other information to talk about on the agenda, that's all I put into my report for tonight. So if you've got questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Do you have an idea of how well attended the conferences were, or how well the signups have gone for conferences with them being remote versus in person?
And I don't know about the elementary signups, because we've still got a little bit of time there. Steve, can I put you on the spot, because I know you were keeping data.
Sure, the majority were Zoom or online meetings. There was also phone calls and emails or specific questions answered. I polled middle school teaching staff, and the average was 8. So significantly down compared to what our normal is. We normally do our rodeo night sort of in the gym, and it's extremely crowded and packed. So it's it was down significantly.
And high school's wrapped up in homecoming and sporting events, so I don't know what.
Just to kind of add a little bit to,
You
I
bet.
just want to say, so because of that, teachers have reached out in sort of larger quantities to reach out to give open multiple opportunities. And so we know that families need information. They don't always reach for it. So we're going to change sort of push information to opportunities.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the Director of Finance, Mr. Bill.
Good evening, everyone. In your packet, you had my report and financials. One thing I'll update you on, we had the audit of the books for the 2021 school year. It was scheduled for 3 days this week. Happy to say they came and finished in 1 day. So hopefully that means all is well. Our plan is to have the final report presented to you at the January meeting. The other big thing, which is next on the agenda, is the filling the budget committee slots. Before we get to that, there was any questions you had on the financial report.
Anybody else have a question? Okay, moving on, we'll go to the budget committee application review. We have 3 applicants for 2 positions. I don't know Terrence, is he here? I do know the other 2.
So normally, Rick, if you just to refresh everyone's memory, there are 2 midterm slots that are opening due to one being you moving on to the board. So you're going to fill your spot, which is for the remainder of this fiscal year. And then we had a member who moved out of the district. So there is this year and next year remaining on her term. So with 3 applicants, what most likely will happen is there's an opportunity for the board to ask these individual questions. Their applications were in the packet. And then you guys can decide who you'd like to fill both positions. And then the 3rd person would serve as our alternate. And that's an important position. They can attend all the budget committee meetings. The only thing they wouldn't be able to do is vote. But they can participate in that and get the information. And then should a vacancy open up, they would roll right in to fill that open spot.
Well, the one thing I will say is that it looks like all 3 are very well qualified to be appointed to the budget committee. So, does anybody have any questions of the applicants? Hearing none, I guess. Yeah, Joe.
Friends is here.
Yes.
Is Shelley.
Oh, Shelley's right there, yeah.
There, and Chris.
Chris over there. Yeah.
Masks. Is just-
Well, yes, we'll just go ahead and I don't know exactly what the procedure would be, but I guess we can just go ahead and vote on the one. for the remainder of this year.
Well, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, candidates, you all kind of expressed an interest on one or the other, so if you have a preference for one of them, I would let the board know. That might make it easier.
I would prefer the 1 year just because I don't know exactly where my life will take me after this year, but I'm happy to do whatever needs to be done.
Okay. Terrence, do you have?
I would reserve whichever position was best. I'm willing to either 1 year or the 2 year position. Perfect.
Okay. So I guess we'll go ahead and vote for the remainder of this year. Whoever.
Was it, I could ask one question.
Yeah.
Were any of the three of you interested in being an alternate rather than a primary? Because that would solve that basically any issue. I'm just curious. Okay, I'm just. Thought I would ask.
Oh, good question. Sure, that's a very good question. So,
Very wanted position, right?
what was that?
The wanted position, everybody wants to be on the budget committee.
Yeah. So, Christopher prefers the 1 year. Shelley, the 2 year, and you're
I'm okay with
whatever.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just throw this out there. I guess we can vote on it this way, if Christopher for the 1 year, Shelley for the 2 year, and Terrence for the alternate, is that?
That would be fine. And just so they know, again, the only main difference is being able to vote. I mean, you still can attend the meeting and have input.
Yeah, yeah,
It's all a matter of voting, so
yeah.
it's not any less important a position.
Well, it's probably more important because you're available if somebody decides they want to leave, then you can step into any position.
Right.
Being the alternate.
Yes.
So, I guess we can vote on it that way, or somebody,
I think somebody makes a motion. Someone should make a motion.
yeah, I'd entertain a motion for that.
Okay, so I think what we're saying is, I would make a motion that, I move that we offer Christopher McMillan the 1 year position, Shelley the 2 year, and ask Terrence to be our alternate and again in all the meetings.
I have a motion, is there a second? Okay, been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Welcome to the budget committee.
Thank you. I'll add your name to the list, and we probably will have our first budget meeting sometime in, not meeting, this workshop, probably sometime in December, depending on how everything works out.
Okay.
Okay.
So it feels like we just got done.
Well, we did.
Welcome aboard. We'll go on to the 8th grade Chromebook distribution with Mr. Bell, Jolene Latz, and Jennifer Kessel.
You're in your own chair.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
We're here to talk about something pretty good and exciting, and really just to, we're not asking for anything on this portion, just informing and maybe input. You know, we always will take input, but not really asking for any action on this information. So so last year, if you recall, or well, 2 springs ago, we handed out Chromebooks to a lot of kids and it asked them to work at home. And that was definitely a new venture for us as far as giving out technology to take home. And it was a new venture for Philanthropic. But this has been done in other places, right? And we've heard about a one-to-one sort of connection where students have needed given laptops or iPads or Chromebooks to take home to check out. And so we went into this last year, well, excuse me, 2 springs ago, and realized it wasn't as scary and it wasn't as dreadful, and we actually got the material back. And so it started us thinking, like, is this possible for us in Philanthropic to start down this one-to-one initiative? And so where we've talked about is, where do we start and how do we start? Because through work with Jennifer and the technology committee, we have the resources and the Chromebooks to do this. And so Jennifer spoke with me and thought about where can we start? And so we talked, and through discussion, the leadership team also said the 8th grade is probably a great place to start. And that's because the 8th grade has a pretty consistent schedule. And then the oldest students have more consistent schedule. If you go to the high school, you have classes that cross multiple grade levels. Where in 7th and 8th grade for the middle and 6th grade middle school, it's fairly self-contained grade level, except for the PE health and or elective. And so this way we can work in a smaller unit and get some valuable feedback and work consistently with a smaller group of staff, and how this works as far as the students taking home Chromebooks and bringing them back. We believe that's probably one of the biggest hurdles, is the consistency of bringing it back in charge and ready to go. And so our plan is to start down this road with getting out information to families shortly, hopefully next week, and start a process of getting information and feedback from parents of how willing they are to say, we'll take this responsibility of having a Chromebook travel back and forth, and realize that we're asking 13 and 14-year-olds to be responsible. So we're going down that road. We're hoping for a great response. It did not seem to be an issue for many last school year going down that road. And so we are positive, thinking that we're going to get a positive response from people that are interested in doing this. We have some plans that if students are, families are not willing to take on that responsibility, how do we meet those needs within the building? And so depending on that number of families, we have different answers, different responses. If the number is small, we might do a daily checkout within the building. If the number is large, we may have to rethink our plan and talk about how do we maybe set up classrooms so there's enough in each classroom to meet the needs. So we really, we have the technology in hand, thanks to Jennifer's work and receiving a grant for us. And we have the support of both technology committee and media services with Jolene. And we also have the 8th grade staff on board. They're actually very, very excited. They can't wait because the biggest question we get is, when do we get more? You know, and I think that's probably true in many secondary classes, that everyone would love to have, you know, full class sets. And so we are hopeful that this will be a very positive experience, and really look forward to the future. If it does, then it will grow, and it can grow pretty quickly to the other levels, especially looking through high school. Hopefully to a point of where one day we might be able to check out the Chromebook to a student at either 8th or 9th grade, and they can keep it, and then ultimately keep it, you know, not have to turn it back in. And that's due to because the life and the expectancy of the Chromebook is not much more than 4 or 5 years. And so really, we would service those anyways at that point. So they become the students to take and have, and could be theirs to take to them to beyond high school, or donate to their family or something else. So that's sort of the work. We're really looking at hopefully, possibly getting Chromebooks out to students and families in that second week of November. That'd be a fast turnaround, but we think by getting information out to families, getting information back, they accept responsibility, we can probably turn that around pretty quick. It's really ready to go. And then our students will be able to go down this road of being responsible in a different way. So if I missed anything, Jolene or Jensen? Any questions, thoughts, wonderings?
Does this mean that the students will use more of the online platforms then in conjunction with the classroom work? Is that how that works?
I think a little bit, But I think what we're gonna talk to the eighth grade team, we're gonna meet with the eighth grade team and 2 Fridays from now to really talk about that and how does that look? I'm hoping it's not a big transformation from what they're currently doing. Because it's not, this goal is not to have more time on technology, but it's maybe you have access and consistency of that use. Many of our teachers last year did transform a lot of their curriculum to be online, so they're currently using it. They just don't always have access every day.
Right, I was just thinking that a lot of work for everyone, if you're trying to advance and those systems, but I was just curious. I mean, obviously, as the children keep progressing forward and on to college, I think colleges definitely use online platforms to disperse all of their information, so I think helpful for students to start getting that piece as well, so it sounds exciting to me. Good job.
Sounds like a good program. Are we gonna use the Chromebooks that we currently have, or are we purchasing more, or just?
So for this round of trial, we actually have enough devices on hand. With the look at purchasing more through some grant funds that we have secured. If it's a good program and it's successful, we have the means to extend it. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then these eighth graders now will continue to take these Chromebooks through high school?
This round, these were Chromebooks that their end of life cycle was the end of this school year anyway. So we're getting through, they will probably be able to take them home with them to use at home. And then if the cycle goes forward in high school, they'll get a new one to finish their career off. But these, in theory, should be able to go home with them at the end of the school year.
Okay. What do you see the cost being to the district?
Currently, I mean, there'll probably be some other costs as far as power strips and things like that,
Yeah.
but not large purchase. There's not a Chromebook purchase that we need in a large quantity.
And they're covered by the grant anyhow.
And they're covered by the grant for
Okay.
future.
You know, we may need to buy some extra chargers to have on hand, and, you know, that kind of stuff, but not any large.
Okay.
In essence, it sounds like, if I remember correctly, fits into the replacement cycle that already exists.
Yes, and prior to even having the grant opportunity to further it, we had talked about this program as a trial, and we're able to do it anyway. So it just kind of happens that the steps came after that made it be able to go forward if we'd like it to.
Okay. Sounds like it's gonna be a great program.
We're banking on it.
Hopefully it'll work out the way that everybody wants it to.
Yeah.
One good thing is that we have had the experience of other districts to look at, and we are really close, like the networking teams and the schools and the media, specialists. We have good relationships, so we're asking what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what did you not see coming that we need to see coming. So I think holding back a little bit on going forward with this was actually in our favor.
Okay. Anybody else got a question?
I have one quick question. There's a point of interest, but also as a parent of a younger child who will eventually be at the middle school. So good luck. What sort of internet safety or internet savviness is being taught to these kids who are taking Chromebooks home? Because obviously as parents, that is mostly our responsibility, but teaching them how to identify what a good source is when they're doing a research project or things like that. Is that included in curriculum currently? Not that I have any oversight of that. Again, curiosity.
Yeah, the technology classes at middle school, they do cover some of that, but that's part of this education process for our staff. We want to make sure that they are educated on what it is that's appropriate, and they can help the students kind of dive into that world and do it safely and find some places that they can do. At school, the filter keeps them pretty safe, but at home, so those machines go home, they'll be not filtered by the school, so that's where they really need to have the education. To know, I'm in a safe place or I'm not in a safe place.
One of the things that Jolie doesn't tell you that she's working on is really what are those tools and programs that can be offered to students within our schools that talk about giving out your names in places. Why don't you put your birth date or your phone number or just the appropriate things like that, and being able to get that more in the hands, especially of younger kids and adults.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Cool.
Right now.
Who's gonna say, you can just hang out right there. Educator effectiveness.
So this next item is actually an action item, and I am asking for something from you in this. And so I want to give you a little history on what educator effectiveness is. And this comes from Senate Bill 290, which was first formalized in 2011 in the state of Oregon. And what it is really it's the evaluation and review process. That is for all licensed staff, and it's licensed teachers, counselors, speech pathologists, administrators, all licensed staff fall under this SB 290. And over time, it has evolved and changed in what's required. And one of the big changes in 2011 that's happened was at that time we were doing sort of this evaluation cycle every 4 years. Somebody was through this every 4 years. And when this came out, it changed it to be every other year. So basically, an evaluation process was done with all licensed staff half each year. And so it increased that load quite a bit for staff and then also those doing the evaluation process. And so over the last 2 years with the different school environments and the pandemic, ODE has been able to adjust the requirements with educator effectiveness. And part of that was, they basically said, you can stop where you're at, you don't need to continue for the year, and they're not taking reporting. And that was really that previous spring. Last year, it was adjusted to, they were also not taking reporting in, but we were asked to do learning and growth goals and then observations. And that sort of morphed over time throughout last year where it became a point where it became sort of optional. Even though many staff did complete the whole process with learning and growth goals and professional goals, and then also went through the observation cycle. It varied from building on some of the extent, but I do know most staff at least went through 3/4 of the process, which is still pretty significant. And so this year, it just came out, I think 2 weeks ago, where we've been given an opportunity for a flexibility waiver. And what that means is there's an attestation form, which I believe is in your packet. And what that is an agreement between the Philanthropic Education Association, the administration, and the school board to say, we would like to use this flexibility waiver. And what the waiver provides is an opportunity for our probationary staff to go through the complete cycle, which they would each year, which means 2 observations, 2 professional or 2 student learning growth goals, and 1 professional goal. And that our contracted staff, so those that have been here more than 3 years is generally how that works, then do not have to go through the formal process this year, and which means really the observation cycle. Each year, it's still asked that we do student learning growth goals and professional goal, but really that observation cycle and formal evaluation of where things are scored and the goals are scored. And so really, the Philanthropic Education Association has agreed to this. We have a working committee that has representatives in each. The administrative staff is in agreement with this, that this would be a good thing to do. What it does effectively, so you know, for me, it reduces the formal observation cycle for probably about 5 people. And so I still have 6, I believe, to my probation on my staff. So I'll still be doing the formal cycle 6, both all the staff will still be meeting, still going through growth goals, we'll still be in classrooms. I still pop into classrooms and watch for a while and hang out and just give them thumbs up on the way out the door or talk later or whatever it is. And so that will still happen. We talked to the administrative team that we will continue to be in classes. It's just the formality changes with this opportunity to be flexible this year. And so I'm assuming most districts around the state will be doing this. I'm not sure why it's wouldn't. So hope asking for your agreement into this attestation form. I know Ms. Saladay has provided that for you and is willing to facilitate that as well. So, any questions?
Is it just a 1 year?
It's a 1 year. So thanks, Andy. It's 1 year. I know. It's 1 year. And then they say current right. This has changed for 3 years now. So current model is 1 year, and then what they're saying is that we should then be in complete cycle by the year 23-24. So next year, the people that would have been on this year will be on next year, the 22-23 year, and then the other half 23-24. Yeah.
And one partridge and one partridge.
Yes.
Yes. So, any other questions? I guess what we need to do is approve the 21-22 educator evaluations notification and
say that 5 times. Yeah.
I so moved. Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded to approve it. Is there any other comments, questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Everyone else, thanks you.
And thank the committee, because the committee's been working at this ever since we started the process and protocols for the evaluation cycle anyway. And it is good.
Okay. Next one is the state report card, and I will turn that over to you.
Yeah, like we talked about before, the 2021 report cards that are reflected last year, I told you weren't going to tell us what. They have to come out from the standpoint of federal funding and federal regulations. So for money to flow from some certain pockets federally into Oregon, part of the requirement is that we have to publish a state report card by district. So because last year we had, instead of students being able to opt out of state testing, we changed things around during the COVID season to offer an opt-in instead. And I think across the district, there may have been 25 students total across the district that opted in to participate in testing. So if we were to look at English language arts or mathematics information, we're not going to get anything. And that has nothing to do with the goodness or not of the teachers and programs in the district. It has to do with what we chose in terms of implementing state testing last year, or not, I should say. So you'll see in some places, the other one is that attendance is really kind of wishy-washy in lots of places because of the attendance rules around distance learning and how that was accepted or not. We have a traditional 10-day drop for students who are out away from school for 10 days. On the 11th day, they get dropped from enrollment. That wasn't in play last year. And so where that drop would happen, we may see more absences, or we may actually see more students present because they showed up and checked in. And because they weren't necessarily sitting in front of people in a classroom for a whole class period, there's more flexibility in that, but it's really not any judgment of what happened last year in the district. It wasn't. The things that we can really take a look at on here are the demographics about the number of students, our language is spoken, the ever English learners, our students with disabilities, the free and reduced lunch across the district, and the things like on track to graduate and on-time graduation. Those things were pretty consistent across the years. And, excuse me, the on track to graduate is students earning 1/4 of the graduation credits in their 9th grade year. So they're part of the way there. And you can see that number is lower this year, or excuse me, was lower for last year. And a lot of that really has to do with online, being fully online, and what that means for credits and students who were online or were not for whatever reason. So it's just interesting to be able to see that and do some comparison and to take a look at what online learning meant or didn't for a lot of kids. So we can see that our staff in terms of administrators, teachers, educational assistants, counselors, etc. And you can see broken down then the 9th grade on track and the on-time graduation, where if data is less than 10 students, the data won't show, it's not available. So when you see that on-track graduation and it says less than 10 students or data unavailable, that's about a small number of, in this case, American Indian, Alaskan Native students. But you start to see some of the history there. We also, thanks to Lillian, put these in Spanish. So whatever goes up on the web, we can go ahead and look at. I'll move along to Blodgett as an example. The information in terms of the school goals, the safe and welcoming environment, bullying, harassment, and safety policies, extracurricular activities, parent engagement, and community engagement. That information on all of the school reports was filled out and completed by the school principals, and in some instances with input from their schools. And so that information was hand entered, if you will, by us. But if we look at Blodgett, we're going to see, again, English language, arts, math, and science, we don't have data because of the process we had for a test opt-in for last year. And also because of Blodgett's small numbers, the data can't be seen quite as readily.
This is all available online, right?
Yes, yeah. And so I don't want to go through them all, but just kind of wanted to explain where the information comes from. And like we had talked about before, there really isn't a lot of actionable data. We are obligated to post that. And we're obligated to, the state is obligated to put that out because of our state's acceptance of federal funds. So the hope is that in the next year, because we will have state testing, we think right now on a regular system, that what has happened traditionally, that we'll have a little bit more information. Attendance regulations have gone back more to a, I can call it normal way of doing business. And so we'll start to see a little bit more actionable data into the future in what these reports tell us. The Philanthropic Academy, the high school, those are going to be places where some of the information that you will see has to do specifically with on track to graduate, on-time graduation, 5-year completion, and college going. So that's really the place where you're going to find those pieces of anything that we could look at to be able to give us some data. So we just wanted to put those out there as they have been published. We know that there are big holes in the data, and it's not a reflection on any why didn't you do's in the course of the year at all. It's just the way the reporting had to come out, and we need to make sure we report on it. So, questions, comments?
Couple of questions. So for the on track to graduate pieces for the district, is that comprised then of the academy and the high school solely?
The academy and the high school and Kings Valley.
And Kings Valley, okay. And then I presume we're doing this anyway, because we knew last year was unique and that probably for many students, it was not as easy perhaps to progress,
Right.
but that we're tracking that and trying to capture those folks early in their process and not waiting. So that was just a question. And then on the free introduced lunch, I know that, lunches are free for everybody this year. So is that go away or is that data still captured somewhere?
The data is still captured. Parents can still apply because there are additional benefits that can go along with that. And so even though every child is eligible for a free meal, the application process gives you some extra opportunities. It could be that there are some people that didn't apply because they're already getting the free meals, and so why would I want to?
So for future years, that data may be impacted perhaps based on
Yep.
that piece. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? To move on to the RSSL resilience.
Right, and this is just some general, the Ready School Safe Learners, the resiliency framework is what they named it as of last year, or excuse me, for this year. And just want to keep you up to date. There have been no changes in the documentation since the 9th of September, which updated the information to address face coverings and the vaccine requirements. I also put out on this report a dashboard for metrics for Oregon. And Benton County, I pulled up the information and I pulled it up. Your report has, I believe, 10/14 as the date. And I just updated this today, to be able to share. So we are now at a place in Benton County at a 70.1% vaccination rate. I'm trying to get that information for the full zip code to see where that lands. We've gone up to 231 cases per 100,000. The state's not pushing us to do anything with that, but when we looked at last year, that kind of 200 threshold, we just want to be aware of where those numbers are in relationship to some of the things that we were measured or looked at in terms of our criteria last year. And there's a 4.5 test positivity, which is lower than the 5% that the state had last year. Excuse me. I also updated the report for our week ending last Friday. This piece of information is posted on the website every Friday, and it looks at the number of positive cases, and it looks at a number of cumulative cases since the start of the school year. And so we continue to update that as time goes by. We've had a couple of recent changes in terms of quarantine protocols. So Blodgett Elementary School, we have temporarily transitioned to a distance learning model. So we have moved to in-person instruction that started this Monday, to online instruction, distance learning that started Monday, and students will be able to come back to in-person instruction on Wednesday, October 27th. Both of the teachers at Blodgett are teaching from school, and they have computers to all the students. We've arranged for lunches, meals to be delivered so that those families don't lose out on the meal opportunities. And Blodgett has also set up a paper pencil pickup. And last year in Blodgett, when we were in distance learning, that process worked well in the community there. And so they've got a pretty well-oiled system in how things are set up. We also have one classroom at Philanthropic Elementary School that will be transitioning to distance learning. Students will begin the distance learning on Monday of next week. We give teachers a transition 2 days to be able to make sure we can get Chromebooks to students. The teacher is connected to doing online, and we have that opportunity for the transition. Excuse me. And let's see, they will be able to come back Monday, November 8th. The reason for the Monday, November 8th is the conferences, you remember, for our elementaries are the 4th and 5th of November. And so it was easier to just start on Monday instead of coming back for one day and having conferences. We also have Philanthropic Elementary School currently with 4 positive cases. 2 are related to household exposure, 2 related to flag football. And you can see as a result, there are currently 18 students in quarantine. And the tough part with that right now is of those 18 students, it interferes, and I use the word literally, interferes with 10 classrooms, anywhere from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many, Crystal?
6.
Thank you. I knew you had to hide, but I wasn't sure where it was. Anywhere from 1 to 6 students in the classroom. And so we're continuing to attempt to find ways to be able to make it doable for us to be able to work with students in quarantine while teachers are also working with the other students remaining in their classroom. And that's kind of like when does there get to be enough that we close down a whole classroom versus trying to keep it going? As we've gone longer, any of the substitutes we have are taking classroom positions and not necessarily in a position to be able to work directly with teachers. The other struggle is we've got then our classroom teachers that are needing to touch base with the substitute or the tutor who are touching base with kids who are in quarantine. So we're working to update and build that bike still as we keep that transition. Because it is difficult. It's difficult at an elementary level. It's difficult at a secondary level because not only are you talking one teacher, but you're talking multiple teachers that could have that kind of an issue. So it's duly noted that it's not the most ideal. We had conversations about, what happens with the tutoring, what do we provide versus what do we not? Is it the same exact thing that students in the classroom are doing? But all those conversations are taking place. We talked about the deadline for educator vaccines. And as I reported earlier, all our employees are in compliance with the vaccine mandate, which is awesome. I just got this information today. That's what I'm shrink this back down where we can see it. This information came today. That's okay. What in essence it says is there are changes that just recently that appeared today that will change the protocols, especially for when students are outside and at recess, and what that means in terms of a close contact and when a person has to quarantine and when they don't. And that's really taking a look at where we find the bulk of the risk. So it says in the K-12 outdoor settings, such as recess or outdoor classrooms, the close contact definition does not include students who are within 6 feet of an infected student where both students were engaged in consistent and correct use of well-fitting masks. And so what it is it still has that physical distance, but it says we're going to not let that go, but if students were engaged in consistent and correct use of masks, the 6 feet becomes less of an important issue. It's still something we want to look at. And it's something that we need to talk about as a district because we want to make sure just because we can, that it truly is the right thing to do.
Are kids wearing masks outside right now? Not outside this mask, right?
No.
Do we feel confident in saying that, I'll just say at the elementary school age, that we know that our students are, I mean, I want to read this exactly the right way, consistent and correct in the use of well-fitting masks?
Yeah, absolutely, that's the deal. One of the things that we looked at with Logic was, just as an example, was being able to say, we have students who are together all the time, and we can't guarantee that they are physical distance to that degree for the limited amounts of time. So that was the decision, to be able to say, let's close down the school, because we can't make those kinds of guarantees.
And I can say, I've witnessed myself at elementary school pickup, when it's after school, they're outside, eating a snack 3.5 inches away from their friends, like literally like leaning together, like giggling, like leaning in the tram with spaghetti practically with their friends. And that's natural human behavior. It's not anything surprising or unexpected, and not necessarily something avoidable even, without constant reminders. But that's my concern with that language,
right,
specifically.
And that's why we look at it and are able to say, how does this apply to us? It was just really putting this out there and saying, here's the kinds of things that if somebody has information and gives it to us and says, well, didn't you read the most updated stuff from the health authority? That it's just the awareness more than anything else about where we are in terms of what the requests are for the physical distancing and the masking and all kinds of things like that. If an adult who is COVID-19 positive is within 6 feet indoors or outdoors of a student with masking in place, the student or students will have to quarantine. So it's, those kinds of things that we have to look at and be able to say, okay, what does this mean for us? But it was really putting something out that said, this hit mailbox today. And so we know changes afoot, and as people see that, the questions start.
I have, I guess, a question or a request. So on this data, when I look at it on your table, I mean, when I look at these numbers, I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. We really haven't had that many positive cases in our schools, really. But I think the number that's missing for me here is how many kids are in quarantine.
Yes.
And I know that that's in flux all the time, and it's hard to, but it would be great to see at least a snapshot alongside these numbers, like where we're at, because I think that's what's really affecting our teachers in this room.
Yep.
How many they're having to support outside the classroom as well as inside.
Yep.
And so it would be great for us to have that kind of view
Okay.
of where we're at as well.
And what I'll do is talk to Laura Bryant, one of our nurses puts together the information each week. And we'll see what the look is and being able to take care of putting something like that together.
That's a great information that I think that everybody would be glad to have.
Yep.
So, okay. Any other questions, comments on the?
I guess it's also a comment, but I think as we continue to have board meetings, it'd be helpful to hear, as you're talking about some of the challenges of in and out of quarantine for a classroom. I can think about potential situations where, great, we're all back together, and then something else happens to that same classroom and how that impacts. Or here you're talking about, 6 students out in a classroom and they're trying to do both. I think just continuing to hear how those discussions are happening at the district level with educators, with staff, administrators, I think would be helpful for us just to be aware. So I imagine it's going to be like all things COVID, a continual moving target. And seeing some of the data that it's not necessarily going down in our area probably indicates that.
Yeah, we started out with really good thoughts and the way that it's going to work, but we also know, apart from that, it's anything from a regular year. So I mean, normally if we have 3 kids, 4 kids out of a classroom for 3 days or a week for a vacation, that isn't happening consistently and routinely, and at the same time, I'm not having to worry about the physical distancing of students in my classroom, talking through a face covering, worrying about who's got the face covering over their nose or not. And so the tension level, apart from being high enough already, has just gotten more and more exacerbated as time goes on. And so it's like it's time to think of what do we look at and what do we give ourselves permission to do. So
Yeah, quarantine
absolutely great.
being 10 days or 14 days versus a cold being a couple of days in a pre-COVID world, you know, where you be out for a couple of days not feeling well, and
Yeah.
you did your homework and you do it and you be right back in it.
And you don't worry about your personal safety when the restrictions.
Right.
Definitely a
Absolutely.
different stress level.
It is.
So it will also raise one concern I have with, and I apologize, maybe I missed this in a past meeting, but that 2-day time period when the decision has been made that a class needs to go into quarantine. So that's potentially, 20, 25 students that are in that school building who have potentially been exposed, who are going through other public spaces within that school. I have nothing but appreciation for the amount of hard work that the teachers have to do to get those students ready to send them home to quarantine. But there is the chance that you could have maybe 5 more students in that class who will test positive eventually, who are eating lunch in the, walking through the halls.
And I didn't explain that during that 2-day of transition time, the students are home. The students are not at school.
Okay.
What it does is it gives, and I just didn't say that, what it does is, we thought, great, we've got Chromebooks, we can put them out, we can just go from one day to the next day and start it and it'll be smooth. But there's got to be the opportunity to be able to have a transition period. And so the students are home and in the safe space they need to be in. And teacher has the opportunity to then be able to take care of the transition, help get materials ready, all kinds of things like that. So
thank you. I had misunderstood that.
Excuse me for not explaining that.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we will move on to number 6, the Clemens Foundation Pool Scholarship.
Yeah, I've got some sad news to be able to report on that, and I'll be able to put this out to the community. I received a letter from the Clemens Foundation saying, we, the board of directors of the Clemens Foundation, are writing to inform you of our decision to discontinue our swimming scholarships. The foundation has been giving 4-year tuition scholarships to the top 2 senior swimmers since 1966. And it talks about the decrease in the tuition amounts. And it sounds like there have been some concerns about criteria for being able to select the individuals and the understanding if it was whole student based or best swimmer based. And the foundation's stance is that it is best swimmer, best athlete based. And over the years, I think there's been enough changing of the guard that the understanding and the availability of printed materials of how that award should be selected and what the criteria of the scholarships has been lost. And so once I got the letter, I reached out to the Clemens Foundation to be able to ask if they would reconsider, as I hadn't had the opportunity to talk with them. That it hadn't been put forward to me. And their response to me today was, thank you, but we've made our decision, which is unfortunate. And I will continue to go back to the Clemens Foundation to be able to look at what we could or should do. We've got a pool that's named for them and have had quite a good opportunity here. But needed to let the board know and begin to let community know what this means for 1 or 2 of our swimmers, and that I will continue to reach out to the Clemens Foundation, and in the hope that sooner rather than later we may be able to work out some issues and be able to get this back.
Thank you.
Information not really wanting to share.
No, not good information.
No, it was disheartening to be able to see that, so.
Well, yeah, I certainly hope that we can do something to repair the relationship, but we definitely acknowledge the past, what do you think, 40 some years they have made this available for students, and I mean, how grateful we are for those years.
Yes.
Yeah, so I certainly hope that.
We're on number 7. PSD boundary change impact.
Bill, do we need to flip the coin for that one? We had talked about for a very long period of time. A letter here. It actually started when Melissa was here, and the conversation about the area by the Boulevard Apartments and that specific area that was actually set in boundary in the Corvallis School District, and we were receiving funds for it, and we actually wanted it formally put into the Corvallis School District because the students were attending with us and things like that. And so how many years later, or a year or so later, you can see that it took a while, and because it started with Melissa, that tells us how long we've been working at it. The information was put out that, like I said, according to the Corvallis School District, the proceeds from those subject properties amounted to approximately $34,000 and change for the tax years from 2009 and between 2009 and 2019. And so this was information that was to be talked about by the attorneys. Corvallis has reached out and said, how do we want to work this out? They are not, because of the expanse of time, saying you got to pay us all of it right now. And so we can work things out with them, but it was really being able to say, this is a commitment that we've had out there on the books for and now that the boundary has finally been changed, we have to start working on being able to make that payment for the proceeds from those properties over the years that we received them instead of $4. What did I miss, Mr. Bill?
It was just a matter when the city annexed that property into the Philanthropic boundaries for purposes of preparing for the construction of apartments. The school district was never included in that annexation. You know, predecessors before us just assumed that it was. And so we found out that it wasn't, and the attorneys had to get involved because of the laws that are in place, and that both our district and Corvallis have locations in a second county. For some reason, like we had to go to Polk County and get their okay. I have no idea why, it's ridiculous, but and Corvallis had to do the same. So that's why it kind of took longer than we thought. So this is the final resolution of squaring everything up.
This is just a matter of taking it. So this is money that we will owe Corvallis.
Yeah.
So then it's just a matter of how fast to pay it to them.
Yeah, we'll work with Corvallis to come up with a payment plan.
I guess I have a question. Is there any other properties that are like this, you know, close, that we need to check on and make sure that things are being done the way they're supposed to be done, instead of we end up in a
This
situation
was
like that?
incorporating not only that parcel of the apartments, but the way the boundary works in that area, it's kind of like this, you know, and so they did go through and try to identify those spaces that would be affected. So it's not just.
I'm not just saying in that particular area, but I mean other
places.
boundary where we entered, butt up against Corvallis, if there's, has anybody checked into any possible?
Yeah, we've had that,
other?
we've had the attorney look into it at the same time, so this way we don't have to go through this process once. So as far as we know, but again, they're annexing properties in and out, so we'll have to continue to monitor.
Yeah.
But at this point, we think we've got it all.
Okay.
So really, that's just, it was the update of the conclusion of making sure we made that available to the board.
Yeah, so there's no action needed, just.
No, I mean, it's something that
information.
we've known for a while that we would have something. And it was just a question of how much and how much time. And I actually got a call from the Corvallis superintendent who said, you owe us money, let's talk about it. And I said, we what? So I got an education real fast in the annexation world, so.
Okay. All right, number 8, PHS schedule discussion.
Yeah, you had asked an update when we started into the marketing process last spring. One of the things that we talked about was what we wanted to put into or hold off on in the bargaining realm in talking about the schedule at the high school, moving to a semester system, not in this year, that was never the intent, but to be able to look at that next year. And having the dialogue with staff about what does that look like instead of a this is it. And so to update you, there's been no additional conversation and no work group established at this point, as we want to make sure we can get through the collective bargaining agreement and work through those processes and finish that before we embark on any additional conversation with the staff.
Okay. Number 9, equity team and PSD board work session, 11/8/21 at 6 p.m. I'm assuming that that's just a informational reminder for everybody on the board that we have another meeting to attend on the 8th at 6 o'clock. That'll be good.
Yes. Yeah.
And number 10, KBCS and PSD joint meeting on 11/18 at 5:30, which is just before our regular board meeting in November. And we received a renewal letter that they are going to request a charter, new charter.
Yeah, part of what they need to put out is a notice to negotiate for charter renewal. And so this is what they've done. And it's not expected to have a whole decision made when we get together in November, but it's to be able to begin the dialogue and take a look at things. And they will have the draft of a charter agreement available for us on that date. But we certainly, there's no obligation or we don't have to make a decision that night about what we're doing. It just starts the process and gives us some things to look at when the
Yeah. And is there a current copy of the charter that we can?
On Edge Portal, I put out there's the charter as well as all the MOUs that have been done since that charter was put in play.
That was my question right there. So, okay, well, we'll take a look at that on Engine Portal then. And
Is it in the board library?
yes.
Okay, oh, yeah, found it.
Oh, okay. I would just suggest that we move slower rather than faster on this so that we don't get into the situation that we've been in for years of extensions and MOUs, and we slow the process down a little bit and get it right the first time through, as opposed to all these other things that we've been having to do along the way.
Yes. Jamin and I have had some conversations already about weaving the MOUs that are currently there into the draft charter agreement that is proposed. So it's one document with that level of information. So
okay. But yeah, obviously we're won't be anywhere near being done on the 18th. That's it.
No, and that's, I just
Just a
wanted to
baby
make sure
step
that
in
we
the
knew
process.
that there was, that was not its intent or the obligation,
Yeah,
it was to get it
no.
going.
Yeah. Okay, action items, the consent agenda.
Can we go back one step on that at 5:30?
Oh, yeah.
Thinking about the fact that, are we presuming that takes us from 5:30 to 7?
At 5:30, 6:30, I think, and then we have a regular executive session at 6:30.
So there's a 30-minute.
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
small window, but I don't, at this time, we don't have a lot
All good.
on the
Yep,
executive
no, I just want
session.
to make sure we held some time in there
Yeah.
for anything to come up. Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay, now we'll go to the action items. Consent agenda. Anybody want to move?
Do we want to jump to the Alaska travel, because that's part of the consent agenda, or?
We'll probably just do that separate, I think, and just, I mean, we could probably do it together.
You want to pull those out?
It's,
So we could approve the consent agenda with the exception of the out-of-state travel,
yeah,
and then talk about that separately.
well, I've got number 2 on mine anyhow. The consent agenda is 1 and out-of-state travel is 2. So they, you know, actually.
But the out-of-state travel, oh, I see.
2 separate.
Agendas, okay, I'll work that.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have a question. I noticed on our consent agenda that Shaman Ellingson, Hunting Valley, is listed as a new hire at the middle school.
That is correct. That is one of the student investment account positions. Jamin has been very open with his board about his desire to not get stuck forever in a charter school director
Position.
perception, you know, and he wants to be able to look at some different things to do. And so he's told Sally they've worked through that for a while. And so, excuse me, when he applied for the position and was hired, we have worked very closely with Kings Valley and made sure that we've not moved quickly. And so we've worked with Kings Valley on how to support their directorship into the future, what that means for their school, what that means for our relationship, all those kinds of things. And so it's been a very thoughtful and very connected process in terms of how we're doing that. And so bless Steve for being able to say, I'd like to have him here now, but I understand what we have to work through. The board has also been very gracious about being able to, as they want to hang on to Jamin, they also want him to be able to move sooner rather than later to whatever that future is that's calling him. But we are very intentional about that relationship and making sure that that is maintained and we're continuing to support them forward.
Perfect. I was hoping here, I was certainly not wanting to do anything to harm our relationship with King Valley, and obviously King Valley had a great asset in Jamin. What's good for King Valley is good for all of us, so, but I'm glad to hear that it's all worked out.
I've been to a couple of their meetings and Jamin and I continue to work together. It just is, it's really been a thoughtful process and wanted to make sure very definitely that Kings Valley knows that we're not, this is not in any way an indication of us saying, forget it. And that we really want to be there to support them and maintain them.
And this position was.
Just a mask in my eye, that's all.
This position was advertised and, you know, put out for open and application, except that it wasn't something from the in-house.
Nope.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Let's see, do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. Now we'll go to the out-of-state travel with the Alaska girls and boys basketball trip in December of 2021 and the Ketchikan COVID protocols.
And what I'd like to do before we get to that piece of it is to just back up a step. We had approved before the travel of Erica Hall and her students to Seattle to the Western International Band Convention Conference. See something. And I have since had a chance to communicate with her. She has one student attending. They have the COVID protocols put out for that for two reasons. It's one we approved with the my ability to follow through with what's happening. Because there's one student, she will not travel alone with that student. And so they will either travel with another group going from this area, because students have to be selected to attend. So she will either travel with another group from this area, take someone else with her, or the parent will transport the student. The part of the parent transporting the student as a possibility is also COVID based. So if somebody gets COVID, we're driving from Seattle. So I haven't heard the results of that, but Erica is very open to, she's been thoughtful in every step of what it looks like in that to do it effectively and make sure that protocols can be followed for her student who will attend. So I just wanted you to update. I wanted to update you on that so that you knew where we stood there. Alaska, both boys and girls are going to the same location. And one of the hang-ups at this point in time, because there are COVID protocols listed for them as well. And the biggest one is if students need to be vaccinated. If they're not, they have to be COVID tested, I think twice a week. Our struggle with that is if someone ends up with COVID in Alaska, they can't get on an airplane to come home. And that is the biggest kicker that I don't see shifting. Nobody's taken a van, and I don't know that I want to be in a van for that length of time to be able to do that at all. I would like the students to be able to participate. My big concern is we can't get around that COVID setup. In terms of if someone becomes ill, it's not just elimination or exit from a tournament. It is about, I can't get on a plane and fly home.
So I have a potential solution to that. There's a program called Fly Me Home. It is basically ambulance coverage, insurance coverage that will fly you back to your home should you become ill. It's something like $150 for the year.
Per family, per person, or
I think it's for the family. It might be more expensive than that. I'm sure that I get a discount from my employer, but it is something that we do.
Okay, and that's something
Probably
that,
at state college.
that we can, yeah, that can certainly be looked at in terms of cost. The biggest thing is wanting to be able to make decisions before there's money into airline tickets.
Absolutely.
I've also talked to Tony Mata already, who has said if they can't go, they may consider some kind of a tournament locally where other students could, or other groups could come here. It would be a disappointment, but the hard part of thinking around COVID is it isn't just like going to Eugene and being able to have somebody come pick you up and take you home. It's really a lot more difficult than that.
I'm assuming they didn't go last year, right?
No, it got canceled last year.
Did they do anything at all last year?
No.
The season didn't even start until the spring.
Yeah.
So that's true, yeah. Yeah,
And parents, not everybody's parent is going, correct? So if you were a child that ended up being sick, you wouldn't necessarily have a parent there to stay with you for the 10 days.
Right, and the coaches can't stay for that length of time. So it's just being able to, as much as everybody wants to go, it makes me wonder if there's gonna be enough of a downturn. You know, I think at one point we thought there could have been. I'm just wanting to be sensitive about airline tickets and like that.
There's also a typo on page 78. I'm not sure how many pages into the request it is. It says that they're going to leave on 10/27 to drive to Seattle and arrive in Seattle on 12/27. I don't think that
Should be
was
12/27.
It's a minor thing, but just in case. It does almost feel like that long of a drive to Seattle and the whole Michigan.
We'll be leaving here pretty soon. Yeah.
So what do you need from us then?
Well, it's the board has to make action on it. And I would see the board either choosing to deny that or approve that with pending conditions in terms of what questions do you want me to investigate, find out about, and see if it's doable in terms of, good, you looked at the same stuff, see if it's doable in terms of making sure that we can safely have students go back and forth. So I would say either of those.
I think my tendency is to say approve with conditions, or, I mean, because the parents need to be completely, you know, I mean, this is one of those things where if the parents are up for it, then I don't see denying it. But
Going with their
yeah,
child.
going with their child, or, you know, being ready to provide some sort of, you know, transport back or go up and stay with them if they, assuming they tested positive for COVID at some point. Yeah, because I don't want to say no. I mean, I think it's a good positive thing for everybody involved in it. But at this time, you know, with COVID and everything, it's just, the parents need to understand that if one of their kids do come down with COVID, that they will probably be asked to immediately go to Alaska and spend the remainder of the 10 days in the quarantine with the student, because the district, you know, the coaches can't stay there. They have other kids that they need to supervise coming home. But I guess as long as it's given to the parents that you may be asked to go there, you know, with that understanding that, yeah, I would be wholeheartedly in favor of it.
I guess that I would actually say to the parent looking to go and not come on, make plans later to go. After the fact they're sick, now we have to figure it out.
And you might not be able to get there. There aren't a lot necessarily.
I
all the
just
time.
worry, I have concerns that
December.
someone, we could just get to a position where a parent might not be able to go for whatever reason, and then we would, I think we can cut it. So I guess my feeling would be to ask that parent to attend.
So is the travel paid for then by this school district, by the student families? Who is paying for, because the amount of money in the request was not enough money, I would
No,
think,
they're
to pay for much of anything.
And I'm gonna look at those people I know that have been coaches that have done this before, if there are still there. I believe it is some fundraising, but there's other pieces of it that are family responsibility or student responsibility. So it's not something that's school paid.
Another caveat could be requiring the travel insurance to be purchased, or things like that, in case 3 days before they're set to leave, the, team has to quarantine for COVID. That would cancel their.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is we make travel arrangements and then the whole team has to quarantine and, before they ever leave town. So there's lots of caveats in it.
A lot of questions. If it wasn't through another country, like the travel, that's an additional concern, is that Canada, the borders are currently open, but will they be? You have to drive from Canada to get there, right?
Well,
I'm not done.
Well, they're flying, so
But they can't fly back if they get sick. They would have to drive back.
well, you say quarantine up there and then fly back out of quarantine. So, I would be interested, that insurance that you mentioned, if it's so much per family, or if it can be bought by the district, where the basketball team as a package deal for the team, as opposed to, per family.
Yeah.
How soon do they need a decision? Because of, I would assume.
Well, they want to buy airline tickets.
Sure.
Is their biggest reason for wanting to get this on sooner rather than later. Which is why they put it on here now.
Yeah.
How long will it take you to find out that information here?
The travel insurance?
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
I think it comes down to, for me, like a COVID response plan, because you look at the plan there, you have 4 athletes to a room, at least in one of them. If one of those athletes tests positive, we need to have an isolation space, so I think in general, kind of following what other folks have said, wanting to support the program, but wanting to make sure they have a approved response plan should an athlete or athletes test positive. And I think that hopefully would cover all of their pieces. But it's not only, somebody comes up there to be with them, but it's while they're there, you don't have an extra room that's been purchased, that's just ready, or an opportunity to put 8 people in a room, or 7, I guess, and one by themselves. So I just think it's an approved COVID response plan should it athlete or athletes response. That's kind of what, I don't know, I think it might be too big a hurdle, but I think it's an opportunity for them to come up with something.
So Fair Medicare does cover Touchdown Alaska. That was the percentage. And there are a bunch of different pricing options, but it is based on a household.
Yeah, I looked at family on this thing on the midget, and it looks like for a family, it's $314 for a short term, and for an individual, it's $184. I mean, that's just a quick look.
Yeah, so this one's standard 1-year membership is $85.
Okay, and I just went for a short term day, so, or number of days, but yeah.
So it's pretty expensive then.
It's $85 per person if they go within it.
Well, I'm looking at 184 here.
Well, I just went short term, 8 days.
And is yours per year here? Okay.
And this is the one that I personally have a membership in. Fair Medicare.
Oh, okay, I was looking at MedJet.
So, MedJet, they fly from a private plane.
Okay, that's no wonder.
So are we needing to just make a motion and then ask Superintendent Halliday to carry it from there, or will this need to come back to some special session for us?
Doesn't need to be, because I mean, it was like you did with
Seattle.
the Seattle trip for Erica, which said, we approve it pending by making sure that we've got appropriate COVID protocol in place.
Yeah. I get a motion?
I move that we approve the out-of-state travel for the boys and girls basketball teams, provided a approved COVID response plan after their athletes is positive.
Okay, I'll second that. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. Go to number 3, Division 22 assurances, action required.
Division 22 is something that, we need to look at every year. And get us back to where we need to be here.
Most of their issues are testing right now, is that right?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I wanted to be able to work through, just to show you where we are. And I keep forgetting to share this screen with people, so what they asked for in the 2021 year, there were some things that were removed from requirements, and I see where I already forgot to put in all the school district employees where I need to, so I'll go back and take care of that. And so the response was, are you in compliance or are you not? What's the explanation or evidence? One of the things that I did this summer was put together a Division 22 notebook, and I didn't bring the notebook because right now it's all sitting in here. That really was the opportunity to take a look at. So for instance, that first one says, Ready School Safe Learners Guidance. And so I pulled off the particular administrative rule from the state to put in the documentation. And then how do we know we have complied? And so the idea is that at any point in time, somebody can pick up that information and say, this is how we know, and this is our backup documentation. And so, and we'll continue to update that on an annual basis. So you'll see our compliance is really good under all these different areas. When you get into the 3rd page, you'll see administration of state assessments is out of compliance. For last year, like I said, we offered the opt-in opportunity for state testing instead of the traditional opt-out. And so our corrective action plan says we're going to resume compliance with all the state testing requirements this year. That's the plan. We're going to go back to doing it the way they tell us we need to do it. So that also means that our exception of students with disabilities is in the same setup because it was also opt-in. And so again, our compliance is just, we're going to go back to doing business like the state wants us to do business. It's easy and straightforward. The assessment of essential skills was waived for the last school year. Also waived was the kindergarten assessment, and it also will be waived for the 21-22 school year. We can keep going and see the incompliances. When we get to a required instructional time, we were out of compliance, and some of that had to do with the length of our day in comprehensive distance learning, that we had a little bit of a shorter day. And so when you calculated out the minutes with the exceptions they gave us, we weren't incredibly short, but we were short from meeting the requirements that they wanted us to meet. And so again, it is, no, we didn't do it last year based on the hybrid and CDL days and schedules, but returning to a normal in-person day for the most part with some of the quarantine, because we're returning to a more normal schedule, we will be in compliance with the instructional minutes into this current school year.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Length of CDL. My interpretation of CDL is different than that. I got to have a commercial driver's license.
The comprehensive distance learning, my apologies.
Okay.
I needed to keep it short for what would fit in the
No,
line.
it's fine. I just didn't.
No,
I was trying to figure out what it meant.
No, acronyms are we, and I need to explain those. So great question.
Okay.
Great question. Identification of academically talented and gifted or intellectually gifted students was waived. We are in compliance with the rights of parents, the class size media programs, those kinds of things.
Everything else.
And everything else we are listed in compliance. There's a couple of places that we will look at for next year, and those things that we'll be looking out for as we work through this year has to do with which ones are they? the instructional materials adoption and making sure that we're either writing the letter that says we are postponing adoption for whatever reason, or that we're taking care of the appropriate paperwork. So that's something that we'll make sure, and that's one of the things that's noted in our notebooks. The other one that we'll look at is our identification of academically talented and intellectually gifted students. And it's not that we don't do it or don't believe in it. LBL was our provider of testing that we used in part for identification. They're not in that business anymore. And so our access to tests that are nationally normed for academic identification, and it's not nationally normed, but they can try the norms, is the state testing. And so we need to have something that will allow us to identify more than just beyond state testing. And so that's something that we have to be aware of just as we move forward. It's we're not at risk of anything. We just need to be thoughtful about what we're doing in that area. The other one has to do with physical education requirements in terms of number of minutes, especially for K-8 students in PE. That has been addressed at the middle school. It has been addressed in large degree at Clemens. The hard place to be able to implement that right now is going to be at Philanthropic Elementary School, and that is because of the number of students and the number of classrooms. In order to offer that required amount of PE, students would in essence have to have PE every day. We don't want to get rid of music, and we also don't have the space right now at Philanthropic Elementary to be able to have a recess and a second PE offering happening at the same time. So that's an area that we'll just have to watch, and we'll have to watch what the requirements continue to be for this year. But I feel very good about where we are. I feel like the district has done a great job to be able to say all we need to do is go back into something a little more normal with the things that we were out of compliance with this year is a great place to be.
So with the identification of the academically talented and intellectually gifted students, I read it to make sure I said it right. Is that something that potentially could happen in conjunction with the Philanthropic Academy? I know they have gotten like a certification and special permissions to do different types of things. Is that something they might be able to help with? Is it administration of the test?
No, it's the availability of the test right now. Okay. And so what we have to do is to be able to make sure that we can access what we want and make sure we have that available. Those can be administered, and typically our school counselors have done some of those as they have needed to be done more on the fly. Okay. And it's just being able to make sure that now we don't have the ESD as a provider of the tool. We need to make sure that we're taking care of business to have things at the rate to be able to allow us to do that.
Thank you.
And I have to submit these by November something, but it's before our next board meeting, and so that's why it's on tonight, to be able to address any questions and approve them. So if you approve, we can go ahead and submit those to the Department of Education.
Okay, so we're going to listen to a motion.
Good, I move that we accept that document or however.
Division 22 assurances.
Division 22 assurances document.
I would second that with the change of the two places.
Thank you.
It needs to get inserted.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this has been seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Number 4, student investment account annual report.
And this is something that we spent the money, and we need to be able to report on that and make sure that it is known what we did. And it will be posted on our webpage. And it was questions they asked us. So as you saw in your packet, the one thing, for instance, the clear impacts from the reduction in the student investment account funding, how were you able to make progress toward goals and things like that. So there were some areas that we purchased more Chromebooks than we thought we would purchase, which is fine because we moved some things around. Because students were in comprehensive distance learning for a longer period of time than we anticipated last year, some of the staffing needs weren't filled. And that was just because there was nowhere to put people in the schools to be able to take care of doing that. And so we ended up doing some shuffling around of some priorities that would have had us hiring some individuals over this last year in the positions that we've done this year through these funds, and with what's happened there. So the questions are just the simple questions they put on the webpage, and what our responses ended up being. Our outcomes that we took a look at is we said we wanted to reduce the academic disparities for student opportunity and student achievement. We wanted to address mental and behavioral health needs. All students being provided access to relevant and rigorous academic courses, staff members having sufficient time to collaborate, review data, and develop strategies to help students remain engaged and on track to graduate, and maintaining strong relationships and partners within the district community. So lumping things together, what we really did last year with the funding is we added some instructional assistants and some teaching staff on a temporary basis to address our limited in-person small groups and some of the additional tutorial support. We funded some mental health support. We had some additional instructional assistants in classrooms. We purchased Chromebooks and hotspots because we needed to be able to get things in the hands of students quickly. The thing that we're finding we have to purchase more of in replacement is the charging cables. The Chromebooks come back with not the charging cables. So it's kind of amazing that that's what we have to buy. And the other thing with some of our rearranged funds, because there were positions we couldn't hire, were when we found out that the intercom and bell systems at 3 of our schools were non-existent. And well, not non-existent, they had used up their lifespan. And we have to have, for safety reasons, the ability to be able to communicate across the school. And so it was a way of being able to take care of that need without dipping into general fund for a one-time shot at being able to say, let's make sure we've got, for the safety of our staff and students, the ability for that communication to happen across the school. So it's the report that they wanted, and it needs to go through the board, but it was just being able to put out the kinds of things we did with that funding in 2021.
See, right here is motion.
I move to approve report.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, sir. Okay, board reports and things.
I have a board report. So this past couple of weeks, last week perhaps, I came from the DHS and had lunch with the people of color / student equity group during their lunchtime meeting. I found a very smart, engaged group of students who were meeting for lunch talking about equity in our school, and it was so great to meet with them. I encourage all of you to maybe take time to kind of get one of their meetings. I know they would welcome that. The meeting was about the upcoming November is Native American Awareness Month, which, as they pointed out, should really mean a lot to us in general because we are the warriors at DHS, and I was just struck that yes, of course. And so I just wanted to put that out there that I was hoping we could do something next month to acknowledge that connection with our local tribe and our warrior symbol and that group. So I just want to put that there and thank that group for letting me join them.
Just great to know. We I reached out to them in our are planning for this year's student investment account with an email that talked about the work that they have done with us, as well as support of the Warrior logos and the connections we've had with them in the past. And it was just really nice to sit down and do that, to be able to put some things in their hands. That's awesome.
When are those?
So one, I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday at 12:42 in the community room.
Is that every Wednesday?
You know, I can double check, but I think it might actually be every Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday.
And it's every Wednesday, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know they were talking about putting up some posters and things for some student education. But what it just resonated with me that, you know, next month is Native American Awareness Month, and here we are in a school where our symbol is a warrior, and probably most of our students who walk through the stores don't even put those two things together. And it really did strike me that that was an important thing we should.
That's at the high school. Right?
I also have a report. I attended the chamber luncheon today, which was really nice to see faces that I hadn't seen in a while because I don't go anywhere. There was a presentation on the C2C trail about the history and importance of it, and the decades, literally decades of work that went into making that happen. So anybody have a chance? C2Ctrail.org, if you want to check out the information about that.
I don't have a report, but I thanks.
I was gonna say, I'd start off with the thanks, but go ahead, Andy.
Okay, well, I know, I had the opportunity to attend some fall conferences, so I, appreciate that they're not all the way through the process, at all the schools, but the effort that was made, by our educators to find an opportunity for those parents who, would like to connect. I just wanted to say thank you. I know that it was, a challenge, and I know I personally have some technology, even though I used Zoom for 18 months, on the day and the time when you have to make it work, it doesn't always do that. So just wanted to acknowledge that and thank our educators for making time for parents who would like to meet with them and talk about their.
Okay. I just want to thank all the staff district-wide for everything that they do, the hard work that they put in, and especially for the teachers that showed up tonight to voice their opinion. And it doesn't go unheard, and we will deal with it. And hopefully the outcome will be the best, and we understand the hardships. There's people that are not in the educational realm that are going through some of the same things, and it's difficult on everybody with this COVID thing, and it's not good. But I did want to thank all the educators that are here, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I see a lot of them that were working tonight while they're sitting here. So it doesn't go unnoticed that you do a lot of extra work, and it's very much appreciated. So.
I second that for sure. The staff works so hard, all the staff, in all areas that, I stopped subbing as of last year, and not being in the schools, I just can't even imagine what you guys are going through stuff. So appreciate
it. Okay. Next meeting agenda items. Is there anything special that board members want to see on the next month's agenda? Oh, yeah.
I just received a whole bunch of policies that our policy group needs to go through, so we should have policies on next month.
Oh, okay.
So updated
All right.
policies. And also there's, OSBA came out where there's a ballot that we will, as a board, will need to vote on. I'll be sending you information on a couple of different positions that within our area that the board needs to.
Oh, that's right, I saw the email about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So is there not hearing any board requests? Must be time for adjournment. Thank you.